A lot of people have PTSD because of the last cycle, and that finished early. It peaked in April, went down 50%, up, made a new high, and then kind of just failed, right? Exactly where I think it is, which is we're now in the part of the cycle which tends to be what I call the banana singularity, when things start to get really crazy. We've seen that with the Trump coin and whatever. What we're still missing is the massive liquidity injections that should come into the market from the central banks and governments. We've got the US will be draining what's known as the Treasury General Account, which is their checking account. That will increase liquidity significantly in the US over the next few months until they negotiate the debt ceiling. I think there is a broader deal that's going to get done with the dollar and China, and I think the US has been using the strong dollar as a negotiation point with China. China can't stimulate its broken economy right now until the dollar weakens, because if not, if they stimulate, they'll break the peg against the dollar, which they do not want. They don't want capital flight. So you need the dollar to come down, and then the Chinese can stimulate and help the world economy recover. The US knows this, and it's a tool for everybody. If Chinese economy starts to recover, they'll buy US treasuries. So we're at the really interesting point in the cycle where all the debt has to get refinanced, all the games have to get played, the dollar needs to weaken, rates will come down, and everyone will refinance their debts by adding liquidity. What does that all mean? All of the macro stuff, all it means is number go up. Liquidity is debasement of currency. Debasement of currency is the driver of crypto prices and all asset prices. So it all lies ahead this year. What's interesting is the discussion around when the cycle ends. So a lot of people have PTSD because of the last cycle, and that finished early. It peaked in April, went down 50%, up, made a new high, and then kind of just failed, right? That was driven by the fact that the business cycle, the ISM survey, peaked in March 2021. Why? Because we had that snap crash from COVID and then snap back up. And the business cycle peaked, as did liquidity. So the cycle peaked. So as it went down again, tried to come up again, but kind of failed because there was no follow through because the business cycle had peaked. This time around, the business cycle is actually still below 50, which is the slow growth zone, not recession zone, but slow growth. And all the forward-looking indicators say the US economy and the global economy is about to get a lot stronger. And so we're nowhere near peaking. In fact, we're only just bottoming. So the chances are that we might even go through all the way till Q1 2026. So I think we've got a longer cycle. I think it will almost certainly outperform the last cycle and looks more like 2017 to me, which, guess what, was a Trump cycle. And we entered the Trump cycle last time with tariffs and, oh my God, this and that. Rates were going up and the dollar was going up. Trump came into office and immediately said the dollar's too high. The dollar came lower. China were also near recession. They had to stimulate. They spent the rest of the next 2 years stimulating. And that's what drove the crypto cycle in 2017. So we've got an incredible similar setup to 2017, which you were around for that one. It was bullish as hell. But liquidity is the big daddy here. I got caught out by this in 2017. By about April or May, I sold out of my Bitcoin. I was up 10x because I bought it at 200. It was trading at 2,000. I'm like, it's a pretty good trade. I took the money off the table. It consolidated for a little bit. Then it went up another 10x into the end of the year. People can't understand this. It's like, if Bitcoin went up 10x from here, and we're at $1 million. Now, I'm not expecting a 10x, but what I'm saying is people did the same thing then. And what happens is you sell out positions, the market corrects, and because liquidity is still the driver, everybody gets forced back into their positions, and that creates this violent end-of-year move. That's possible. I'm not saying it's definite, but I think of improbabilities, and that's where my head's at.
So when you put all these factors together, what's happening in the SEC and how bullish the current administration is towards crypto, and when you look at the macro factors as well, could we see a super cycle? Is it a sin if we discuss it this time around?
I'm going to flip it a different way of looking at it. Has Amazon been in a super cycle? Yeah. Has Microsoft? Yeah. Has Google? Yeah. Have they all had massive correction periods during the downside of the 4-year cycle? Yes, every single time. So what you don't do is you don't get rid of the cyclicality. It's the compounding of returns over time. Now, the only change that I could say is possible, and I think is likely, is that the downside in Bitcoin is not as big as people expect, right? The free money trade is you try and sell out somewhere near the top, or even if you don't sell out, you're waiting for the dip to buy more. The answer is usually wait till it's down 70%, 75%, start buying, and you make a 20, 30x on that trade every time. My guess is it probably ends up down 40 and not down 75. And that will create a lot of complications for people who are waiting for the big leg lower. And people are going to get caught out, I think, in this cycle. Now, that doesn't mean all of the long tail stuff doesn't go down 90%. Of course it will. But I'm thinking about Bitcoin itself as the anchor price to this whole thing. I kind of am the impression of what changes is the downside is reduced in Bitcoin.